Alrighty, let's react to this CrowdStrike situation because this is crazy.
This morning with a very special guest. Hey, Jim.
Thank you, Carl. Yes, we have to speak right now to George Kurtz, the CEO of CrowdStrike, a company that has a stellar reputation, but we want to know what this would do to it. George, thank you so much for coming on Squawk on the Street.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me.
What happened at CrowdStrike stock? My guess is down 10%. That's my guess. CrowdStrike. Oh, a little worse, about 11.5% or so for CrowdStrike here today. So, but it was way worse earlier. It got all the way down about 290. Interesting. I mean, yeah, definitely bad publicity for them today. It was no bueno, right?
All right, George, I know your company very well. Our viewers know it too. How did this happen?
Well, first, Jim, let me start with, I want to personally apologize to every organization, every group, and every person who's been impacted by this. And we understand the gravity of the situation. And let me explain a little bit more about what happened. This was not a code update. This was actually an update of content. And what that means is there's a single file that drives some additional logic on how we look for bad actors. And this logic was pushed out and caused an issue only in the Microsoft environment, specific to this bug that we had. We identified this very quickly and rolled back this particular content file. Obviously, many organizations are impacted, and many of them are beginning to recover. Many systems can be rebooted, and we've fixed the issue, so the systems are coming up and running. Some systems may not fully recover, and we're working individually with each and every customer to make sure that we can get them up and running and operational. But to be clear, it was not a cyber attack. It wasn't anything related to that. It was a content bug or update that we sent out, that we identified, and we rolled back.
Why do you...
So first off, that's good news in regards to it not being an actual cyber attack. But on the flip side, it also makes them look pretty sloppy. They're like, oh, you push some sort of update, you push something out, and it caused all this problem. And so it almost caused like a fear of like, what if they push something again in the future and we have another one of these situations?
Many different users find themselves with the blue circle of death. And how do IT people get in touch with who is down? Because will this take, are we talking hours? Are we talking days?
Well, many of the systems are quickly coming online because they're able to be rebooted, and the problem goes away and is fixed. Some systems are going to take some more time. It could be hours, it could be a bit longer, but we're working with customers that if the system doesn't fully recover, we're working with them on the specific fix for that. So essentially we are providing guidance through our tech support, through our blogs. Everything that we know, we want to be as transparent as we can and get that out to our customers.
George, this is CrowdStrike we're talking about. Is this Falcon, which is your best program? And I need to know, why did you not phase this in? Why was this done all at once? That seems to be, to me, your response.
Well, it traditionally goes out in a phased approach, and it goes through, what we do is, we've been doing this a long time, testing throughout the life cycle of any of these updates. So it initially went out and we started to see some issues and then pulled it back. So not all of our customers are impacted. Windows and Linux are not impacted. And as soon as we saw this issue, which didn't manifest itself before we obviously sent it out, we rolled it back. And now we're dealing with the impacted systems.
I want to be sure about this. This did or
yeah, it sounded like he kind of avoided the whole why send it all out at once deal.
Not get to Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud, because if it did, then maybe that would explain things, but maybe they're separate.
Well, Azure can run, customers run in Azure, right? And they can run our software there. So if there was a customer that was running in Azure that had our software, it could have been impacted. But That's the extent of what I know specific to the Microsoft piece.
You do not know whether this has impacted Azure or not?
Well, when you say Azure, it has impacted customers that are running in Azure. That's what I know.
All right. Now, let's talk about liability. You offered an apology. To me, an apology means that therefore you are culpable and therefore you will be sued, maybe perhaps sued by airlines, perhaps sued by networks, perhaps sued by banks. Let's talk about the liability to CrowdStrike and what it could mean.
Well, we have to sort out what that all looks like, Jim. Obviously, from our perspective, and I wanted to jump on the air because it's all about our response and getting our customers back up and running. You know, we'll do the hot wash on how this happened and ensure it doesn't happen again. I think past that, you know, we'll deal with. My goal right now and my mission is to make sure that every customer is back up and running and providing the protection that they've come to rely on from CrowdStrike.
Do I believe that the ones that...
So, that's tricky. So, in regards to if they have to face lawsuits, right, from, let's say, airlines, as Jim speaks about there, okay, they could go that route, right, and try to sue CrowdStrike for damages of whatever happened here today, right? But the issue is you will end up paying for that again, likely, right? The CrowdStrike will likely end up going up on price. And guess what? Anybody that competes with CrowdStrike also is going to look at this. And if there were lawsuits open, they're all going to go up on price significantly, because then you got to factor in, the danger of, like, if something goes wrong and it's our fault, they're going to try to hold us responsible for this situation, right? Which then ends up price boop, 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 is going to go up and you're going to end up paying for it. There's no such thing as a free lunch. I tell you guys that all the time. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And the customers will end up all paying for that on the end. And so if you're the airlines and you're like, we want to get these guys, for what happened and they caused a bunch of problems in our system. Okay, go ahead, do that. You're going to pay for it over the next 20, 30 years. And like I said, if you think, okay, if CrowdStrike raises our price a bunch, we'll go somewhere else. You think they're not going to? Understanding that you're going to go after them if something goes wrong, of course they're going to go up on their price. It's going to be like a big insurance policy that at that point in time, right? So, you got to be careful with that stuff. That's all I'm going to say, because that, might sound good at first, and then you kind of play down the game a little bit and you realize, oh crap, this is not going to go well. And they'll end up paying for it in the end in a big way. And when I say them, I'm not talking about CrowdStrike. I'm talking about the companies.
Not come online.
Because all those companies, they need cybersecurity. It's not like that's something you can just be like, we'll have it or we'll not have it. No, you choose not to have it, you're going to have a lot more problems.
Perhaps have to be hand fixed, which would stretch every single IT department of everybody who is a client who you sent this update to.
Yeah, well, we're working on the automation. There's many times this can be automated to be fixed. It may take more automation than just simply rebooting the system. That's what the teams are working on right now with customers. But we've been in contact with... Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Obviously been in contact with customers working through the fixes, and many of them, again, are coming back online.
I'd like to turn this over to my colleagues, David and Carl. Maybe you want to ask George something?
Yeah, Jim, thank you. And George, thanks for being here. Yeah, I mean, to Jim's point, I think right here, I know on the ground here at the New York Stock Exchange, our CNBC computers are going to require somebody apparently to come and actually do some sort of an update manually. So,
oh my gosh, did you see that stock price? It went from under $100 to almost 400 in a year and a half. Flip my flapjacks.
Again, this could take some time, couldn't it, for organizations that are going to require somebody to actually manually update code or whatever it may be to be able to successfully reboot.
Yeah, there could be some manual steps involved, and certainly we're looking at ways to be able to automate those manual steps. And depending on the system and the computer brand and the network and how it actually works, it's different in each organization. Many systems can be rebooted, and the fix can be done automatically upon a reboot that's specific to the hardware manufacturer. So we have to work through that, but there is a manual fix for it
evaluation
that can be employed. And again, we're looking at ways to automate those sort of fixes so that it isn't as manual as going
understood. You mentioned obviously some updated content, the issue with the Microsoft environment solely, but to what extent is Microsoft, or in the past, have they perhaps been able to identify something that might cause a problem? I'm just curious to understand if there's any culpability here in terms of Microsoft as a result of what's occurred.
Yeah, we're trying to sort it out on our end, again, exactly the interactions. And as you might imagine, the operating system, and this is what we're talking about, Microsoft operating system, is robust and complex. And if you have a negative interaction based upon our content update.
I bet you any money in the terms of service also that every client signs off on, there's some sort of, you can't hold us accountable if the system goes down or something. I guarantee you in the terms of service, like that's almost like, I would say 99.9% probability that's in those terms of service that every customer that signs up for CrowdStrike has something like that in there. So that's also a jail-free card in regards to CrowdStrike. And once again, if the customers want to try to go after them, I'm just saying like that's this crazy talk because you're going to end up paying for way more in the future than if you didn't.
That caused the issue, right? Or can cause the issue. So we've got to do a hot wash and figure out exactly what systems were affected. Was it a particular operating system version or a patch level on a particular system? We don't have all the details on that yet, but that's what we're going through right now.
Yeah, you know what else is interesting is we were speaking about Black Swan events. I think it was on the main channel a few days ago or something like that, right? And talking about Black Swan events. Oh, when we were talking about what happened with T-Man, right? I think it was the first video I produced since the whole T-Man incident, right? And I was talking about, man, what a Black Swan event that would have been if the connection happened, right? And those are things you have to be prepared for in the market. And I think the next major Black Swan event that's going to happen someday, I don't know when it's going to happen, there's going to be some sort of major cyber attack or something that's going to happen, right? And it's going to shut down systems for days, weeks, maybe even a month, and it's going to cripple the economy in the short term. It's going to cripple countries in the short term and cities and whatnot. It's going to cause an absolute mess. I can definitely see that happening someday. And so that will be probably the next thing. But when does that happen? I don't know. I don't know when that happens. Maybe it's 2027. Maybe it's 2032. I don't know. But I could see something like that happening one day and just a shock and awe type event. Very similar to, obviously, Rona, right?
Hey, it's Jeremy. I hope you really enjoyed that clip here today. What you're looking at in front of you right there, that's 1000xstocks.com. That is my personal advanced software that I use to make my investment decisions when I go to invest in companies. As somebody that's been in the market 15 years, I got sick and tired of using these different services that folks have out there that are designed for traders in the market. People that are looking to get in and out of stocks. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to long-term invest. I need to be able to see all the different ratios and metrics that are very important for me as a long-term investor to judge if I'm getting a great deal on a stock or if I'm getting ripped off on a stock. I need to be able to compare different companies versus each other and be able to do that in a matter of seconds rather than it taking hours like it used to before I created this service. I want the ability to listen to conference calls, see SEC filings all in one service. That is what we've created with 1000xstocks.com. If you are looking to access this software, go down to the description area of this video. You can click the link down there and apply for access. If you don't want to do that and you want to search a website, go to 1000xstocks.com. Enjoy it.
Which is affecting folks across the world right now. It just happened after CrowdStrike rolled out an update last night. Dan Ives just put out a note on CrowdStrike on how they're going to need to go into damage control mode and what comes next, Dan. Thank you for joining us. What does come next, and what is this going to cost the company?
Well, this is a black eye moment for CrowdStrike, and I'd say for the cybersecurity sector. Now, the damage, look, it's going to be weeks, months, potentially years in terms of understanding the damage. The big issue is the brand damage, because CrowdStrike today becomes a household name, but not in a good way. George and the team, I don't think this changes the long-term story. But other competitors, Palo Alto and others across, they will try to take advantage of this. That will be a big focus in the sector.
Do you think that there is a liability issue here? Meaning if you're an airline, like an American airline or whoever, where there's a ground stoppage and they're losing money as those planes are sitting on the tarmac, can they go ahead and sue CrowdStrike?
If you're a lawyer for CrowdStrike, I don't think you're going to be seeing the beach this summer. because this is going to be coming from probably all angles, right? Legally, not just airports, transportation companies. Now, look, Microsoft needs to figure it out from their angle. Now, they're more, I'd say a victim here relative to what happened on the Windows side. So I think less of an issue for Microsoft. Look, for CrowdStrike, you're talking about a company that prides itself on brand. F1, globally, anyone that's seen them at airports. And this is just, look, it's an epic disaster. It's something we've really never seen in the cybersecurity industry at this scale. So this is a bit unprecedented.
In terms of the way we were talking more broadly about what happens next and the sort of larger implications of our reliance on the cloud. Do you think this changes anything about the way systems are set up more broadly, about the third parties that are used by a Microsoft, about even the idea of consolidation in these spaces?
Yeah, and after this happens, changes will have to happen because the scale of something like this, there will be changes in terms of third-party implementation updates, not just for CrowdStrike, but across the industry, because this is unprecedented. And it's not just black eye for CrowdStrike, black eye for the cybersecurity industry.
When you say changes, self-regulated changes, or do you think the government gets involved?
I think it will be self-regulated, but the chances that CrowdStrike gets called to the Beltway for some hearing, it's probably pretty high.
Yeah, Dan, when you say changes that happen, you mean Microsoft and other companies aren't going to let third parties come in, third-party vendors, and do cybersecurity for them, that they will do more of this in-house?
Well, I think they're going to have to change in terms of the process on the updates, and then just take a step back. Google likely, probably acquires Wiz, and probably one of the biggest cybersecurity acquisitions is reported by the Wall Street Journal. I think this is just going to push Microsoft further and further to potentially trying to do a cybersecurity acquisition themselves. They've been around the sort of edges there.
They buy CrowdStrike.
But this is something within Redmond, they don't just, go next week like nothing ever happened.
But that meaning that, how do things happen now? Was this a third-party vendor that was allowed to do the update? They sent it internally and it happened, and nobody at Microsoft realized that there was this problem or bug in it, and you think that has to be then happening internally, which is why they would want to purchase one of these companies? And if so, who do they purchase?
I think on the Microsoft side, look, third-party updates are common. That's happening on a minute-to-minute basis. In terms of Microsoft, we've talked about they're going to have to look across the industry. Cybersecurity has been something that, normally they have third parties, and they will continue to have third parties, Palo Alto, Zscaler, and others. But I do believe when something like this happens, you look at names like a Varonis, a Tenable.
Right. I definitely wouldn't look to buy these stocks right now, any of these cybersecurity companies, just to be quite frank, including Palo Alto. But what I'll say is this could cause a lot of fear around that entire space and cause valuations to come down substantially. And if you were to see those valuations come down substantially, I think that could set up as potentially a buying opportunity maybe in the fourth quarter of this year, maybe into 2025 for a lot of the cybersecurity companies, where everybody would be fearful of like, oh, they push one bad update and they cause all these problems. Oh man, this is a huge situation, right? But I do believe if companies try to hold them liable, I do believe they're going to go up on price substantially over the coming years, and all their competitors will as well, because they understand the risk that goes in with that. And then, those companies are going to have huge pricing power because there's only a few of them that are really like big dogs in that space, right?